Hello and a warm welcome to HW News Network, your one-stop show, truth be told, for some engaging and thought-provoking conversations. Remember those scenes where Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni were exchanging toffees over the caramel diplomacy? But do you know of a serious story which has been brewing in the middle of Iran war? And we came to know about it because of Italy. Yes, thank God that the protesters in Italy ensured that the story was out. Now, I'm going to show you a screenshot of the story of Middle East Eye. And that has become viral on the social media because the activists with the boycott, divestments, and sanctions movement and No Harbor for Genocide, which is called NHB, are raising the alarm over what they describe as a flood of military supplies from India to Israel after 6 shipments of suspected military-grade steel were identified on multiple vessels en route to weapons factories in Israel. Can you imagine Prime Minister Modi saying, we believe in dialogue and diplomacy, hum yuddh nahi buddh mein vishwas karte hain. And what does he do behind the back? He is supplying military-grade steel to Netanyahu so that the artilleries and the bombshells can be made. Now, the shipments, activists have said, and thank God that the activists spoke to the press, and that's how the story was out. Shipments, activists said, amounted to around 806 tons of military-grade steel and could produce up to 17,458 artillery shells for the Israeli military. Now, according to the movement, 3 of the shipments carried by the Geneva-based Mediterranean shipping company, that is MSC, are currently being held in Italy, 2 in Gaio Toro in the region of Calabria and 1 in Cagliari, Sardinia. These are the 2 ports in Italy where the Indian ships are held back, where authorities have held the cargo for inspection. Now, 2 other shipments, the movement said, were being held in Gaiola Toro, where authorities are being pressed to inspect the vessels. Meanwhile, the shipment worth 206 tons of military-grade steel was rerouted from the Mediterranean to Sri Lanka, and the shippers appear to be seeking an alternative route to reach Israel. Now, No Harbor for Genocide said that all 6 shipments originated from RN Steels and Energy Limited, based in Aurangabad, that is India, and were ultimately headed to a key weapons manufacturing facility of IMI Systems, now known as Elibit Systems Land, in Ramat Hasharon. Now, these shipments were an estimated $1 million, left the Indian port of Nhava Sheva, also known as Jawaharlal Nehru Port, located in Maharashtra, between January and March of this year. And the activists have said that we are now seeing a flood of military supplies from India to Israel. Now, what has happened today, and that is the latest development, that Giorgia Meloni, Prime Minister of Italy, she has summoned the Israeli ambassador. And what has transpired between the 2, we do not know, but it does go to show that Prime Minister Narendra Modi has hidden this big secret from the country. And remember, he was on a trip to the 5 nations where we saw all the camaraderie between the prime ministers, then those the moment of the Norwegian press showdown, then came the melody toffee moment, the caramel diplomacy. But what was really on? Did Prime Minister Modi go to Italy? And that's what the people on the social media are writing, that did he go to beg Meloni that please release the Indian ships which are held at the Italian ports? So we'll try and understand this entire diplomacy and the positioning of the Indian government as far as the Iran war is concerned. Joining me this evening is columnist, author, and former spokesperson of the Congress, Sanjay Jha. Thank you so much, Sanjay, for joining. And this story is really disturbing, as it does because of the Middle East Eye, which has done the story. And a lot of people are writing on the social media. What would you really like to say on this particular story? What does it go to show?
Well, Neelu, to start with, good evening. And even your dog seems to be terribly upset. My dog is at the moment relatively quieter, but I'm sure that he accedes to your dog's sentiments as well. But let's get serious. I read the Middle East Eye report, and it is definitely very disturbing. Now, I will wait to see how this story escalates and whether the MEA responds to it. But the truth is that it is disconcerting for a very singular reason. The International Court of Justice has categorically mentioned that countries should be cautious and circumspect in engaging in any trade of military or any hardware that will enable Israel to continue with this program of genocide in Gaza and including in the West Bank. Now, we all know that Mr. Modi went to Israel and he made his speech in the Israeli parliament, and the war started within the next 48 hours. So, India's relationship and its diplomatic stance under the Modi government is very unambiguous, Neelu. India sided with the America Israel axis against Iran. And as the world is aware, that was a disaster in terms of foreign policy. Not just in terms of human rights violations, not condemning the political assassination of Ayatollah Khamenei, but overall, India's conduct has been shambolic, and I'm being very charitable when I say that. This particular incident that has been reported is, if it manifests that the fact that India is going to continue to engage with Israel by providing it with ammunition which will help basically Israel to create the infrastructure, the military infrastructure that can only further pulverize the innocent Palestinians who have been butchered, and we know how many have died, including thousands of children and women, that then it makes us frankly look like an accessory to the horrific crimes that are happening, which is why I believe.
I remember on the social media and a few reports which came out, and there were reports of how Indian ships were being rerouted, and especially the ships which were meant for Israel. But what happens? I mean, does the story go to show that Prime Minister Modi or the Modi government has been hiding on this all along? In the middle of the war, if these ships are traveling to Israel to supply the military grade steel, the entire country didn't know. Has Prime Minister Modi hidden this big secret?
Well, you can't really hide it. And I'm sure that, let me tell you, the government knows it can't hide it. It's basically all these very sensitive matters. Because, see, this is a transshipment, right? If indeed these steel and other heavy equipment was being transferred through the ships, there is no way that it can remain a private confidential secret at all. I mean, there is documents of shipment that are there in the public domain. So I don't think it's that. I think really it's a media, really the mainstream media of India, that will blacklist this kind of a report. Now,
no, because this story came out in the public domain because of the dock workers, the dockyard workers who protested. And that's how they were taken into custody. Then Giorgia Meloni went and protested. And that's how this came out in the public domain. Otherwise, nobody would have come to know what's happening.
Well, let me tell you, full marks to Giorgia Meloni for one reason. She's been, along with Pedro Sanchez of Spain, the Prime Minister of Spain, these leaders have been in the forefront of publicly taking a very clear position, and not just political or diplomatic, but even ideological. They've said that we totally are going to stand against what Israel is doing. And they have talked about not just breaking off defense contracts, etc., with Israel, but even threatening, hey, listen, let's break off a diplomatic relationship if it comes to the brink. So I think these are leaders in Europe who have taken a very categorical, explicit position. Now, here is the problem. Now, because they have taken a position, if these ships have really been stopped in Italy, that's consistent with Meloni's foreign policy. And you got to applaud them at a time when the major grand Western nations have been, for a long time, they were actually blindsided. They pretended to be in denial. and much later woke up to the reality that what was happening in Gaza was horrific. It was like
Absolutely.
apartheid and genocide, and in fact there is an arrest warrant out for Benjamin Netanyahu, and they now have woken up to their moral obligations. So Meloni has been superbly consistent. Now I don't know what really transpired
No, but
because we get.
as Meloni, now Prime Minister Modi till yesterday was with Meloni. He was on a trip to Italy. And at that time, a lot of people on the social media writing that Prime Minister Modi must have gone to beg and kneel before Meloni that please release those ships. But the biggest question right now is, and what I'm reading on the middle East Eye is that the stalled shipments in the Mediterranean, activists have said that they highlight how India has stepped in to help address the Israeli military supply shortfalls during the past 2.5 years of war in Gaza, despite the January 2024 International Court of Justice ruling urging states to avoid actions that could assist Israel's military campaign. Now, do you think that and this was a declared genocide by the United Nations? So can India now be dragged to the International Court of Justice for this?
Well, let me tell you, if this is established, it basically means that India would be sending out a message, a very brazen one, that they do not care for that advisory, which is why I mentioned it at the very beginning, that I'm a little surprised because this is some audacity or effrontery to when you have got a clear message from the International Court of Justice that please do not support Israel during this time because it will be seen as being an accessory or aligning with a power which is blatantly executing genocide on people. That will make us look like a morally compromised country. But here is the point that we need to note that under Narendra Modi in particular, India has tilted very uh, shall we say, clearly to the right wing government of Netanyahu. And please remember this. And I ask you to go back to that issue, Neelu,
Right.
of Pegasus. India has become an importer of not just defense, but a lot of cyber security and surveillance systems from Israel. Pegasus was a spyware, and although the matter was handled, I thought very shabbily, right up to the Supreme Court level, without any, clear verdict being given. The truth is that the government of India refused to participate in that entire investigation, even with the Supreme Court, right? And the government has never denied that it did not buy Pegasus. So India and Israel have got aligned. I also feel that because Mr. Modi went there, and if you notice, he went to the UAE, which is, by the way, again, another part which is very hostile to Iran, right? The relations there are pretty botched up. So here is the problem that Narendra Modi, as India's prime minister, is sending out a message to the rest of the world and to the Middle East that India is on the side of Israel, notwithstanding the accusations of genocide, the arrest warrant against Netanyahu, or the fact that Israel today has done many acts which are terribly illegal and continues to probably threaten regional peace in the entire Middle East.
No, but Sanjay, does this story also not go to show, because there were speculations when Prime Minister Modi went to Israel, all were asking questions that did Prime Minister Modi know about Israel attacking Iran? Now, does this story also mean that apparently, or probably this story could be another evidence to show that Prime Minister Modi would have known that Israel is going to attack Iran?
Well, let me tell you, if he did not know, then I think it's incompetence of the foreign policy officers of India and India's foreign minister that when the whole world was talking about it, that the attack is imminent, it was in all the newspapers, it was on all digital media. You and I knew about it, but if Mr. Modi doesn't know, then I think both the foreign minister and Mr. Modi should resign because they don't know what is going on in the world. So that's point number one. Point number two, if they knew about it, it is terribly unprincipled, immoral, and unethical. So bottom line, It's a very compromised situation for Mr. Modi and his government. They can't pretend that they did not know. And I can tell you, when war is going to happen in 48 hours of your presence and you have no idea, or you're pretending that you don't have an idea, that goes to show that this is nothing but essentially taking a very theatrical stance, that pretending otherwise. But I think this kind of what I call as brazening it out doesn't really work. People are perceptive, people are discerning, and everybody knows that ever since Mr. Modi became prime minister, we have become pro-Israel.